luminescent soil of Agatha, a hidden dominion bathed in the glow of an eternal emerald sun. The atmosphere here was thick with raw magic, humming with a frequency that would instantly vaporize an ordinary mortal mind.
The tale of the sovereign mistress had only just begun. The suffocating shadows of the ancestral estate now served as her throne room, a sanctuary of absolute dread. Kenza, now known exclusively to the unseen courts as Rihan, sat upon a chair of carved mahogany. The air in the grand hall plummeted to a freezing sting as she raised a solitary pale finger. She did not speak, but the psychic weight of her command violently ripped through the dimensional veil. Zohan, the King of Kings, materialized from the creeping frost, bowing his shrouded head in profound submission. She demanded to know the true shape of the mortal plane, seeking the boundaries of the world she now intended to conquer. The entity let out a low, rattling sigh, raising his spectral hands to weave an illusion of cosmic scale. A massive, ethereal map projected across the grand hall, shattering every geographical lie she had ever been taught. The King of Kings pointed to the frozen wastelands of the far south, the towering ice walls that humanity believed marked the end of the earth. With a sweep of his skeletal wrist, the illusion expanded, revealing that the ice was merely a barrier. Beyond the frozen perimeter lay unmapped continents, endless oceans, and lands of staggering, terrifying proportions. Zohan whispered that the terrestrial plane possessed no true edge. It was an infinite expanse, mimicking the boundless heavens above. Armed with this devastating cosmic truth, Rihan stood up, her eyes burning with an insatiable, catastrophic hunger.
She raised her hands, weaving the forbidden syllables of the Palace of Whispers to tear a hole directly through the fabric of space. The portal erupted in a shower of blinding violet sparks, smelling of burnt ozone and ancient stone. She stepped through the tear, leaving the Moroccan mountains behind for a realm obscured from human history. Her boots touched the luminescent soil of Agatha, a hidden dominion bathed in the glow of an eternal emerald sun. The atmosphere here was thick with raw magic, humming with a frequency that would instantly vaporize an ordinary mortal mind. In this alien land, the veil between realms did not exist. Jinn walked openly among bizarre, towering humanoid civilizations. The sky was dominated not by birds, but by colossal winged reptiles, dragons that breathed streams of liquid lightning. Rihan did not flinch as a massive beast circled above her. Her catastrophic aura demanded immediate, instinctual respect from the apex predators. She spent months observing the inhabitants of Agatha, absorbing their arcane methods and integrating their spells into her own terrifying arsenal. Yet, this subterranean paradise was merely the first stepping stone in her grand, endless pilgrimage. For 10 agonizing, blood-soaked years, the sovereign mistress ripped through the boundaries of reality. She walked across continents where the rain fell upward, defying the very concept of gravity. She navigated sprawling metropolises carved into the skeletons of dead titans, inhabited by sorcerers whose eyes held no pupils. Some lands were locked in eternal twilight, where shadow creatures fed on the memories of the unwary. Others were burning paradises, where rivers flowed with molten gold, and the inhabitants spoke exclusively in harmonious shrieks. Through every portal, Rihan grew colder, her humanity eroding until only a core of pure, calculating malice remained. She bound new, bizarre entities to her will, expanding her demonic court into an army of unprecedented interdimensional horror. Despite a decade of relentless traversal, she never found the edge of the world. The King of Kings had spoken the absolute truth. The earth stretched onward into an agonizing infinity.
It was during a psychic interrogation of a captured, multi-limbed oracle that she uncovered a secret far darker than the infinite geography. She had breached a library in the forgotten continent of Hyperborea, a place where time itself flowed like thick sludge. The oracle, bleeding silver fluid from its countless eyes, confessed the existence of the immortals. Rihan learned that humanity was not entirely limited to its fragile, fleeting century of existence. Scattered across the infinite plane were human beings who had quietly defied the rotting touch of death. Some had survived for over a millennium, hiding in plain sight, hoarding wealth and manipulating the rise and fall of petty empires. But there was a specific faction, a dark, fanatic cult whose roots reached deeper than the foundations of the oldest pyramids. The oracle trembled, whispering of a shadow syndicate entirely devoted to the false messiah, the great deceiver. This cabal had been actively festering in the dark for over 7,000 years, orchestrating a global symphony of misery. They had walked the earth during the era of the prophet of the split sea, actively working to corrupt the divine miracles. Whispering, Rihan felt a sickening thrill course through her veins. She had finally found players worthy of her lethal game. These cultists possessed an ancient, calculating patience, preparing the mortal realm for the apocalyptic arrival of their master. The sovereign mistress realized that her conquest of the Ait al-Talam was merely a child's squabble compared to this cosmic war. But the bleeding oracle had one final terrifying revelation before its consciousness collapsed under Rihan's psychic grip. The deceiver's cult was not the only ancient force walking the infinite expanse of the earth. There was a counterbalance, a solitary, enigmatic wanderer whose age rivaled the foundations of the mountains. The ancient texts referred to him only as the verdant sage, a man who left blooming life in his footprints. He too had stood by the prophet of the split sea, acting as a guide through the incomprehensible paradoxes of divine fate. Whispering, the sage possessed a knowledge so profoundly terrifying that he operated entirely outside the boundaries of good and evil. He was the guardian of the unseen mechanics of the universe, a phantom who appeared only to alter the course of history. Exhausted, Rihan dropped the lifeless husk of the oracle, her mind racing with the catastrophic implications of this newfound lore. The earth was infinite, populated by ancient dragons, visible demons, and eternal cults serving an apocalyptic master. And somewhere across this boundless horizon walked a green-cloaked immortal who held the true secrets of destiny. The young magician stepped out of the crumbling Hyperborean library, staring up at a sky choked with violet nebulas. A dark, twisted ambition rooted itself deeply within her blackened heart. She no longer desired merely to rule the localized shadows of her ancestors. She intended to hunt down the disciples of the false Messiah and strip them of their 7 millennia-old secrets.
But she would find the verdant sage, corner him at the edge of reality, and force him to surrender his cosmic authority. To achieve this, she needed to expand her perception beyond the limits of human comprehension. Rihan summoned Thuban, the sovereign of the mind, commanding the great serpent to merge his consciousness with hers. The psychic fusion was agonizing, a violent tearing of her mental architecture that left her weeping tears of black blood. But when the pain subsided, she could feel the faint rhythmic pulse of the ancient immortals beating across the infinite plain. They were scattered like hidden stars in a vast, dark ocean, their auras shielded by millennia of protective sorcery. She traced a particularly dense concentration of dark energy leading back past the frozen walls of the south. The cult of the deceiver had established a stronghold in a realm where the sun never set, an eternal day of blinding, maddening light. With a flick of her wrist, it conjured a new portal, the tear in space screaming like a wounded animal. The King of Kings stepped forward, his shrouded form offering a silent warning against underestimating these ancient adversaries. Rihan merely smiled, a cold, predatory expression that promised nothing but total devastation. She stepped through the swirling vortex, the temperature instantly shifting to an oppressive, suffocating heat. The landscape before her was a sprawling desert of white sand, reflecting a blinding, multicolored sky. In the distance stood a towering citadel, constructed entirely from polished obsidian and human bones. This was the fortress of the 7th millennia, the hidden sanctuary of the deceiver's most devoted architects. Guarding the perimeter were beasts that defied biological logic, chimeras of flesh and celestial steel, armed with ruinous magic. Rihan did not slow her pace, walking directly toward the heavily fortified gates with absolute, chilling confidence. She raised her hands, and the 4 sovereigns manifested behind her like towering apocalyptic storm clouds. The sky darkened as Tariq unslung his massive greatsword, eager to taste the blood of these ancient heretics. The bone citadel responded, a terrifying siren wailing across the infinite desert, awakening horrors that had slumbered since the Bronze Age. Hundreds of cultists poured from the gates, their faces hidden behind masks of weeping gold. They chanted in a corrupted dialect, launching spears of concentrated dark matter that tore through the air with terrifying velocity. Rihan did not flinch. She merely commanded Hassaf to exhale his rotting mist over the charging army. The front ranks dissolved into screaming puddles of bile before they could even cast their subsequent curses. But these were not ordinary magicians. The survivors immediately adapted, casting protective domes of hardened light. The battle that ensued was a cataclysm of magical warfare, shattering the white dunes into rivers of glass. Rihan moved through the chaos like a dancer, weaving spells of pure annihilation that deleted her enemies from existence. She ripped the golden masks from their faces, using Thuban's power to violently extract their memories before they died. With every crushed skull, she learned more about the impending arrival of the false Messiah. They were building a machine within the citadel, an artifact designed to fracture the sky and invite the deceiver into the physical realm. Rihan approached the towering obsidian gates, her robes drenched in the blood of 100 ancient sorcerers. She placed her pale hands upon the dark stone, whispering a shattering verse she had stolen from the Palace of Whispers. The massive doors exploded inward, sending a shockwave of lethal shrapnel tearing through the courtyard. She stepped into the belly of the beast, the air thick with the scent of burning copper and frantic, desperate rituals. At the center of the grand cathedral stood an altar, and upon it rested a sphere of pulsating abyssal energy. Standing before the sphere was an elder priest, a man whose eyes held the weary weight of 7,000 years. He looked upon the sovereign mistress not with fear, but with a profound, terrifying pity. He whispered that she was too late, that the cosmic gears had already been irreversibly turned. Rihan raised her blood-soaked hands, ready to show the ancient immortal the true meaning of despair.